Peace, family. It's your brother Chase back at you again with another reactionary video. And check it out, man. As you can see by the title and the young lady in the video as well, we have another African woman who is sitting here talking crazy about foundational Black Americans and trying to tell us who we are. These folks love trying to define our ethnicity. They love trying to tell us where we're from and how to identify. So, your boy's going to break it down from a non-emotional analytical standpoint so we can provide some substance and some truth. But before we do all that, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon, and go get my 20th book, When Black Americans Stop Singing and Start Swinging, written by yours truly. So make sure you go get that because it's important as foundational Black Americans that we tell and write our own stories. With that being said, let's get straight into the video, family.
And this is the last thing I'm going to say about diaspora wars because, again, I'm not arguing facts with opinions.
And as a side note, I've broken this down in several videos. These folks love diaspora wars. Don't let them fool you. If they were ever to stop talking about diaspora wars, they would cease to exist, okay? They have no motion. They have nothing going for themselves. Their countries and homelands, many of their homelands are failing, okay? They don't even practice their own customs and traditions. All they do is cosplay us, all right? So in order to get attention, what they have to do is they have to attack us. They have to constantly throw shots at us. They have to constantly beef with the kings and queens. Okay, and that's foundational Black Americans, the folks with all the motion, the folks with all the culture, every culture that they love and they emulate. So let's be clear as a side note, but let her continue.
A lot of Americans feel like they look nothing like Africans because they're American. Now let's just look at the facts. What exactly does it mean to look American? Because the last time I checked, Americans were Native American. So that is what Americans look like. That's what it is, right? Because they are native to this land. Where exactly did Black American slaves come from?
Oh Lord, okay. She said a lot. Well, let's unpack it from a non-emotional standpoint. And one of the biggest mistakes these folks make when they come over here is they think because they're skin folk, that means they're kinfolk. And it could be anything further from the truth, aka meaning they think just because they're Black, they know our story and they know our history in this country. All right. And they don't. And every time they try to tell our story and talk about our history, they make themselves look like fools. So let's jump into something real quick. I'm big on definitions. So let's just do this from a basic standpoint. When people have these conversations and they say things like this, the first thing I want you to do, family, is just look up what they're saying. Just look up what they're saying. And the gist of this conversation is who is an American? Who is an American? Okay, let's go here. As you can see in the Google title, I said, what is an American? Because she was talking about these are the Americans. This is what an American looks like. All right. An American, as you can see highlighted, is a native or citizen of the United States, family. A native or citizen of the United States. American, being an American is talking about your nationality. That's a nationality. Plain and simple. All right. Now, inside of that nationality, you have different races and different phenotypes of people. It's no one fixed phenotype on what an American is. Meaning you have for example, a white American. You have what we are, foundational Black Americans, or commonly known as just Black people or Black Americans. You dig? You have Asian Americans. You have quote unquote so-called, and I'm using it for example purposes, Native Americans, the people that she claimed to show in the video. Okay, many of which are not Native Americans. All right, many of these folks are Johnny come lately. Many people you see on these reservations now are $5 Indians. They paid $5 to become part of the Native American tribes. And those are the folks right now who run casinos X, Y, and Z. So inside of the American nationality, you have different races of people. There is no one fixed phenotype. So what the hell is this woman talking about? So she's playing dumb to try to undermine foundational Black American identity in history. Now let's get into the images that she pulled up. She pulled up these images, and let me go back real quick. Now she put these images on the screen, family, and this is the common depiction of Native Americans. They love to put up these Native Americans who are of the Mongoloid phenotype. They're of the Mongoloid phenotype. Many of the Native Americans, like I said before, that are on these reservations are actually $5 Indians. They're actually white native, white people who just signed the Dawes Rolls back in the 1860s to become, quote unquote, identified as a Native American. However, anybody who looks at and anybody who studies history knows that when we talk about the phenotype of the original inhabitants of this land, many of the phenotypes that were depicted and were described were phenotypes that match foundational Black Americans: black skin, curly, kinky hair, broad nose, big lips. You dig? And if you don't believe me, let's just go to it. And I'm going to pull sources from my own book. Now, as you can see right now, I'm in my book. This is 19 white men who admitted there were indigenous Black people in America. Because let's go through some receipts. We're going to highlight people like George Langford. Now, George Langford, as you can see, was a man of many different trades. He was a German naturalist, explorer, and Russian diplomat and physician. And what made him famous is he went out to the California in the early 1800s. This is before a lot of the reclassification. This is before a lot of the Dawes rolls went on, and you had all these $5 white Indians coming in, the Iron Eyes Codys of the world, and claiming Native American descent. Okay, this is during a time of enslavement. This is from 1803 to 1805, and he went out to the Bay Area. All right, went out to the Bay Area, and he described the quote unquote native people of the San Francisco, California Bay Area family. And I just want to highlight real quick, and this is in my book. He says, and I quote, page 6, their lips are large, thick, and protruding. Their nose is broad, flat, and Negro-like. Their features in many respects resemble those of the Negro, and their color also. All right. They resemble the Negro. He didn't say they resemble an Asiatic. He didn't say they resemble white people. He didn't say they were fair skinned. He said it resembles the Negro in color, in texture, nose-like. Let's read it one more time. Their lips are large, thick, and protruding. Their nose broad, flat, and Negro-like. Their features in many respects resemble those of the Negro, in their color also. But let's go to more receipts, family, because we don't have to hide. I got receipts for days. I've written books on this. Okay, so when these folks talk about this is the phenotype of the indigenous people, of Native Americans, you start pulling receipts on their asses. By the way, if you want to actually get his book, it's called Langford's Narrative of the Reasonable Voyage to Nueva California in 1806, family. Just look that up. And that comes directly from his narrative on page 55 through 57. We're dropping actual receipts. We're not giving opinions. Okay, we're doing what she was claiming to do in the video. Now let's go down even further, family, because this is what we talk about in the book. I'm giving y'all sneak previews of my book, 19 White Men Who Admitted There Were Indigenous Black People in America. This is volume 1. Now, years later, family, years later, it was a man by the name of Louis Couros. Okay, he was a famous French-Russian painter. He has many famous paintings that are in museums now to this day, well respected during his time frame. In 1816, a decade later, he went to the same area and he actually painted these folks. He gave us some of the earliest representations of these native people of the San Francisco area, the California area. All right, these are the people he painted. And it is called, this image, you can look it up right now to this day, Habitants de la California in 1806 by Louis Couros. Damn it, those resemble FBAs. Black skin, broad noses, thick lips. The only thing that is unique about them, due to their ancestry being indigenous, is their unique straight hair. All right? Which we have foundational Black Americans with straight hair to this day. Because let's be clear, they always try to act like foundational Black Americans. All we have is 4C hair. No, we're a very diverse group of people because we have a very unique ethnogenesis in this country. But let's go more, because they'll say, well, Chase, you just pulled up one image, one account. Well, hell, let's go next. Let's go to Giovanni Veracino, family. I got time today. This is going to be a slow cook. For the Africans in the back who claim they know our history, who don't know shit. These folks are she's coming from the Congo, a place that's only had one census in its country's existence. A place where damn near a damn quarter of the damn children don't have birth certificates. Folks don't even know when they were damn born on paper. But she gonna tell us about our history. Yeah, we got time today. Or we know our history like the back of our damn hands. Okay, let's go to Giovanni Verasino. Now, Giovanni Verasino, let's go back deeper. He was an Italian explorer, family, most notably known for his explorations of North America, particularly on the southeast border of the United States in the 1520s. He visited what would now be called the Carolinas, family, in around 1524, all right? And during his visit to the Carolinas, all right, he wrote this in his letter, and he wrote this in a letter to King Francis on July 8th, 1524. You can look this up. Everything I'm telling you is verified. You can look this up. You don't even have to go get my book. Matter of fact, I don't want you to go get my book. I want you to go do the deep digging for yourself, all right, to verify what I'm saying and what I put in my information in my books. He said this when describing the native people that he encountered. He said they are dark in color, not unlike the Ethiopians. He said not unlike the Ethiopians. An Ethiopian is a word that they would use in past times in the 15 to 1400s to describe people who were black. He said they're not unlike the Ethiopians, aka they're the same as them, with thick black hair, not very long, tied back behind the head like a small tail. All right. And by the way, if you want to see that, you can go to Giovanni de Verasino's letter to King Francis in 1524. That's on page 2. Okay, not unlike the Ethiopians. Now, also later in his letter, Giovanni Verasino goes deeper. He talks about an experience during that expedition where a young boy fell in the ocean. He fell in the river near the shores, and he almost drowned if it was not for the indigenous inhabitants who saved him. All right. So when speaking about these indigenous inhabitants, Verasino said this: they are dark in color like the other tribes. Their skin is very glossy. All right, they're dark in color like the other tribes. Remember, Verasino was the same person who said they are not unlike the Ethiopians. So we're talking about black people. But let's go deeper. Let's go to Bartholomew Gosnod. Bartholomew was an English explorer and a privateer who was instrumental in the founding of the Virginia Company of London, okay? He is also credited with being among the first group of English settlers to land in Jamestown, Virginia, okay? They always credit Jamestown with being one of the first established English colonies in the United States in 1607. But Gosnod, he made a very interesting account. He was selling up the Americas in early 1602 when he first, quote unquote, was discovering the Americas. You know, we put that in air quotes, y'all know why. And during this time, he was selling up the East Coast from Virginia to Maine, and he encountered some of the native people. And this is what he said in his letter. These people are of tall stature, broad and grim visage, of a black swarth complexion. Okay? They were very particular about the language they were using. This is in the 1600s, family. I'll show you one more. Now, this is page 62. This is one of my favorite all-time accounts. You know, I keep this like a, like a metaphorical, revolver for people who really want to play. Because I think this describes it all, and this is coming from the horse's mouth himself. This is from Alice Hanlig. And I apologize to my school teachers out there, who I might be mispronouncing the word, but you can see the spelling on the screen if you want to look it up. Now, this dude, he was an immigrant from the Czech Republic. He came over in the early 1900s, X, Y, and Z. And he served as the curator of physical anthropology at the Smithsonian Institution and National Museum of Natural History. He was also the founder, family, of the American Journal of Physical Anthropology. This was the founder. And in 1929, he wrote a book called Melanesians, Australians, and the Peopling of America. Now, by the way, family, Melanesia means the Black Islands. For people who don't know, that's in the Pacific. That is where you get Fiji, Papua New Guinea, other places like that. Melanesia means the Black Island. So when we talk about the peopling of America, Melanesian, in ancient times, we're talking about Black people coming to America. This is the founder of the American Journal of Physical Anthropology, all right? And inside this book, he said something I thought was so interesting, so very interesting. And I think it perfectly debunks what this woman is saying as far as it goes for phenotypes. This is the phenotype of the real American. He says, and I quote, and I'm going to read the whole thing. It's about 2 paragraphs. All right. But the lessons of all of this are often forgotten. even by scientific workers. Thus, the skin color of the Indian ranges normally and outside of all admixtures. So he's not talking about mixed Indians. He's not talking about people who are mixed with something. But he says the natural Indian ranges from yellowish tan to dark brown of solid chocolate. Okay? It is especially dark in hot and dry regions such as Arizona and California's. And I showed you the pictures that George Langford and Lewis Corris and the descriptions they talked about. And that particularly in the old men who used to go almost or wholly naked. Here's the kicker, family. But the color is never black. That's what he says. It's never black. It could only be compared with that of a not infrequent full-blooded Negro who is dark brown. Okay? See, a lot of people thought they had it when he said they're not black. See, Chase, they're not black. But he says he never sees the Negro as brown. He sees a full-blooded Negro as dark brown. He says, let me say again, it could only be compared with that of a not infrequent full-blooded Negro who is dark brown rather than black. Okay? He says between the color of such a Negro and that of a dark full-blooded Indian, there is but little difference. And it means no more that the Indian has any Negro blood than that the Negro has any Indian admixture. Damn. What did I just read, family? And by the way, you can find this in his book, Melanesians and Australians and the Peopling of America, page 39. And that's published by the Smithsonian Institute, okay? I'm talking about official documents, not TikTok theories and videos. What did he just say, family? And that's important to point out because oftentimes when we show images of dark-skinned indigenous people, they always run and say, hey, yeah, they had intermixed with some Africans on the plantation. And he's saying, no, that's not true. He's saying just because a Indian, and I'm using the language he's using, Native American indigenous person, is dark-skinned and looks like a full-blooded Negro, doesn't mean he has any Negro ancestry. He is, in fact, just a full-blooded Indian because their phenotypes range from yellowish tan to dark full brown chocolate. Oh, that was a kicker right there. That's the nuclear bomb that we just dropped right there, family. And I got more receipts. Again, my book is called 19 White Men. I just gave you 4. I got 38 white men in those 2 volumes of books. So I just wanted to point that out, family. I hated to be long-winded. I know y'all don't like when I make these long videos, man, but sometimes you have to slow cook. I just pointed that out to show you these folks don't be knowing what they're talking about, family. They don't do any real research at all. Their end goal is to simply undermine and confuse us on who we are as a people and use it to manipulate and control us to identifying what they want us to identify with, to make themselves feel comfortable. See, they feel uncomfortable that they're African. It ain't us. We have no issue with African people. I have acknowledged, in Foundational Black Americans, we acknowledge the Africans who came on those plantations and that intermixed with the indigenous population and other populations throughout time to help form our ethnogenesis. We acknowledge that, but we also acknowledge our indigenous ancestry. We also acknowledge that. And that makes a lot of Africans, Caribbeans, and others feel very uncomfortable. But with that being said, let's continue.
Black American slaves come from? Where were they taken from? Oh, Nigeria, Ghana, and Congo?
Oh, Lord.
Okay, so now when they came to America and they were enslaved and they were forced to have babies, they were having babies with other slaves that also came from Africa.
Oh,
dark skin, broad nose, full lips. That's what Africans look like.
I know, family. I know. Just be patient. Let's be cool. Let's slow cook it again because we have to cook all these little talking points. She said, oh, she's trying to be sarcastic. Oh, Where did Black Americans come from? Oh, Nigeria, Ghana, and Congo. No. And you know why? Because there was no Nigeria, there was no Ghana, and there was no Congo back then. See, we got to start pulling these folks' cards. They love to act like their countries are so ancient. There was no place called Congo. There was no country called Congo. There was no country called Ghana. There was no country called Nigeria. That's number one. So ain't nobody coming from them damn countries. Wasn't nobody taken from them damn countries. Those countries didn't exist, ma'am. Number two, it is widely known among scholars and historians, family, and you can look this up, that only roughly 4 to 6% of Africans who were involved in the transatlantic slave trade came to the United States of America. Most of the growth of the enslaved population of the United States of America came from two things: natural birth increase. Many times it was forced labor. You had breeding farms, especially on the eastern coast, where they forced bred people. You had the intermixing of other groups of people, parts of the indigenous population. And as well, you had the reclassification of certain people. Many times, this is what happened to our indigenous family. They were reclassified, sometimes as mulatto, sometimes as colored, and different things of that nature. That's where the increased population came from. But this whole thing, if they just brought 5, 6, 7, 8 million Africans over here to the United States, that's not true, even according to their textbooks. Most of the enslaved Africans went to the Caribbean and they went to South America. And it's funny, y'all never try to Africanize them. That's the kicker. Most of your family went to the Caribbean. Most of your family went to South America. You don't try to Africanize them. You don't have any problem with a Jamaican just saying he's Jamaican and that he has his own unique culture, traditions, and customs. You don't make him call himself an African Jamaican. You're an African Haitian. You're an African Brazilian. Y'all don't do that. Y'all do it with us, and we had the least contact. But going back to the reclassification part, for some receipts on that, a great book the family needs to read is a book called Africans and Native Americans by Jack D. Forbes. He talks about the reclassification of Native Americans to things like Negro, to things like colored, and other things. In fact, here's a video of Jack D. Forbes right here breaking the whole thing down. So when we talk about how did these enslaved populations grow, they weren't growing because of the importation of Africans just coming in hand over fist. They were growing because they were reclassifying people. They were pushing natural births. Okay, they were intermixing with other indigenous populations. All right, here's Jack D. Forbes talking about this now.
And the same thing is true in the British colonies along the Atlantic seaboard. In Virginia in 1705, for instance, the government decrees that the child of an Indian will be known as a mulatto. That is, a person who's half white an Indian, half African an Indian, will be a mulatto legally.
Okay, let me cut you off here because we don't want to keep you here all day. The significance of this being what?
Listen to this, family, because the brother's asking him, why is this significant? He's asking Jack D. Forbes, who's what she would call the prototypical American. He's Native American, indigenous. Nobody questions his indigenous ancestry. Full-blooded, they say. All right? This is what he says. Listen.
What is the lesson? What is this telling us?
Well, there are several things that are significant about it. Of course, one of them is the way that colonialism tries to develop all kinds of elaborate classification terms for different kinds of people. But that's another subject. The most significant thing here is to reveal the much greater amounts of Native American ancestry that are present within the African American population than most people realize, because they might have been misled by the use of terms like mulatto and also people of color.
All right, there it is, family. There it is. So he's talking about the reclassification. Another thing we don't talk about is the paper genocide that happened to our people. All right? The paper genocide, whether it was them being kicked out of the tribes, whether it's them being reclassified on paperwork as mulatto, people like Walter Plecker, who erased thousands of ancestors' indigenous heritage by wiping them out in the textbooks. Anybody who looked like they had Negro, quote unquote, Negro blood was classified as a Negro. So we have to understand this, family. Here's another example. This is from another documentary called The American Red and Black Stories of Afro-Native Identity that came out in 2006. All right. And this brother right here, this is another indigenous brother. He's breaking it down, one of these terms and how they would reclassify people who look like him who were indigenous.
Happened after they brought in the
And by the way, this is shown at universities to this day, one of them being the University of Washington. Okay, so this is a film that is greatly accepted even among scholars on the university level.
Happened after they brought in the African slaves in such large numbers. More and more intermarriage took place as there was less and less of a distinctly Indian presence, and you had more and more of the mixtures, or mulattoes, as it shows in the census records. Mulatto, I hate that term because it's just an umbrella to sweep all Indian people under. And then there was after that term came about, then they came up with the term colored, and that was another big umbrella to sweep all the Indian people under. Anything so they wouldn't have to put the word Indian in the record books. So what they couldn't accomplish with the torch and the gun, they hoped to accomplish with the stroke of a pen. And it's for that reason I reject totally the label of Black Indian, because I've seen people use that term. I've seen some of our own people use it themselves, but usually it's an externally applied term. And I reject that totally, as long as there are blonde-headed Mohawks and blue-eyed Cherokees who are not identified as Euro-Indians. Why should any Indian that has any black ancestry be identified as a Black Indian? What's good for the goose has to be good for the gander, but it's just a reflection of the racism that's in this society in general.
And there it is. There it is, family. Okay, so I mean, this has been known and talked about on a scholarship level. But when you have these Johnny-come-latelys, these folks who are simply skin folk and not kinfolk, they don't do deep dives like that. Okay, their whole thing is pushing this agenda to try to get us on the African train. We're just supposed to be these generic Africans, I should say. Generic Africans who don't have a home, who just wander around the United States. Okay, that's why they don't like the term foundational Black American, because there's power in that. Because not only are we honoring the brothers and sisters who came through the slave trade from Africa and other places who were put on those plantations, we're also honoring our indigenous ancestry who was already here before those plantations. All right, and the ethnogenesis they had to give us the unique and special culture we have today. They don't like that because they can't strictly lay claim to that. You have to acknowledge our ethnogenesis and our uniqueness as a people. And also, family, she kind of hinted, she said that, you know, oh, they were just having babies with other Africans. These Africans, these few Africans that came, they were just having babies with other Africans. Therefore, I guess she's saying they're just pure Africans. That couldn't be anything further from the truth. Even the Africans on the plantation were heavily intermixing with some of the indigenous and native populations. In fact, let's go back to Jack D. Forbes' book. Jack D. Forbes wrote, and I quote, and I'm going to read this little section. As early as the late 19th century, the 19th annual report of the Bureau of American Ethnology reported that a considerable portion of the blood of the southeastern Negro of the U.S. is unquestionably Indian. Okay, unquestionably Indian. The 1937 doctoral dissertation of James Hugo Johnston, blatantly published many years later, went further. There developed in the colonial period much in a mixture of the Indian and Negro slave. Okay, talking about the intermixture. Okay, so when she sits up there and acts like, oh, these Africans were just having babies with other Africans. Okay, how delusional these people can be. He goes on to say the class commonly called the mulatto, back to that mulatto term, is the result in many instances of the union of the three racial elements. To the visitor in the South, the physical characteristics of many Negro slaves bore witness to their Indian origin. The mixed race in America today is the result of the union of the Indian, the Negro, and the white man. All right. Johnston also noted that many Indians were enslaved along the eastern seaboard. What I've been saying, okay? The end of the Indian slavery came with the final absorption of the blood of the Indian by the more numerous Negro slaves, but the blood of the Indian did not become extinct in the slave states, for it continued to flow in the veins of the Negro. I rest my case, family. These folks don't know what they're talking about. Okay. A lot of these tether class, they don't know what they're talking about, family. But let's continue.
Now, the argument usually is we don't look nothing like Africans because we have mixed ancestry, which is a fact. An average African American does have some white ancestry, and that usually ranges between 10 to 40%, sometimes more.
Wait. So why the hell was your ass over there sitting over there talking about, oh, we were just having babies with other Africans? Okay, and she's still trying to be slick, family. Again, they'll acknowledge the white side, okay, but won't acknowledge our other admixtures, like our indigenous admixture that we've been breaking down forever. Okay, they won't acknowledge that part. Let's be clear, they won't acknowledge that part. Okay, but let's continue. Let's see what else you got to say.
So, do you guys want to say that y'all look more European? Is that what y'all want to say? Instead of looking African, do y'all want us to say that y'all look European? Because that would mean in your ancestry, right? Because you guys are mixed, you have white and you have black. You have European and you have African. So what you guys really want to say is, we don't look like Africans, we look European. Because that's the mixed ancestry that you lot are talking about.
No. What we're trying to say is we look like Black Americans. We are our own unique people. We have our own unique look, ma'am. Just like we have our own unique culture, our own unique traditions, our own unique customs. We have our own unique, quote unquote, phenotype that looks different. These folks love to play dumb. You know a Black American when you see them, just like we know Africans. Okay, we know when we see an East African, we can break y'all down to regions. We know when we see East Africans. We know that phenotype, that head structure. We know when we see an African, ma'am. And let me tell you what this is all about. See, a lot of these folks, they have this deep-seated insecurity. They think when we say we don't look like them, we're calling them ugly, because that's how they really feel about themselves. See, they come over here and they cosplay us. And then they come over here and act like, oh, yes, nigga, I am one of you. I'm one of you, nigga. You niggas don't know the difference. You know I'm African. No, nigga, we look the same. No, we don't. We see you, Mbuki. We understand you look different. Where are you from? Where's your family from? You look East African. You look West African. We understand that because we have different phenotypes. We are not one big generic Negro. Let's be clear, family. So we're saying and we're highlighting our uniqueness. And understand there are differences. The way we look, the way we walk, the way we talk, our cultures, our presentations, our values, they are different. And there's nothing wrong with that. We are not running around here shaming Africans for looking different, but your deep-seated insecurity, you think we're trying to shame you, and we're not. And how dare you sit up here and start talking about some, oh, you want to be white, ma'am? Since our ethnogenesis in this country, we've always shrouded ourselves and took pride in our blackness. Let's keep it a buck. Foundational Black Americans are the reason why people think black is cool. We made that our title. We're the only group in the diaspora who has made blackness our title. We say, hey man, I'm just black. Even to this day, ask our grandmas, ask our parents. What are you? Oh shit, I'm just black. I'm black. We're the ones who made that cool. We're the ones. We come from a lineage of brothers and sisters like a James Brown who says, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. That didn't come from y'all. We gave you the Black Power movement. We named some of our most powerful, influential organizations like the Black Panther Party. We put blackness in everything we do. What the hell are you talking about? Oh, You really trying to say you white. We've never said that. We don't have a cake soap epidemic over here. With foundational Black Americans over here lightening their skin with cake soap. That's in Africa. That's in your motherland. That's a projection what you're doing. We pride ourselves more than any other group in the diaspora on being Black. Y'all are the ones who come over here and say, me no Black. Y'all been saying that shit for decades. Your parents too. Me no Black, me Dominican. Me no Black, me Jamaican. Me no Black, I'm Nigerian. Y'all always have othered yourselves to get away from Blackness. You laughed at it. Oh, them niggas just be thinking they Black. Those niggas have no culture. They just call themselves Black. We the ones who've always taken pride in that. Get the hell out of here. That's gaslighting. That's shaming. But I'm not surprised, family, because this is what tethers do. Tethers like reverse engineering and trying to play victim. Tethers love playing dumb. Talking about, oh, what you want us to call you white? No, call us a Black American like we've been saying. Call us foundational Black Americans. Let's continue.
To reiterate, brown skin, curly hair, broad nose, full lips, African people.
Lord, ma'am, and those characteristics can be found around the world. And they can be found in all around the world in antiquity, family. Just like the indigenous Black folks of Asia, the Jawa, the Andaman Islanders, the Negritos, they look different from somebody who's Fulani. Somebody who's Fulani looks different than somebody who's from Fiji. You dig? The indigenous people of Fiji look different than the indigenous people from the Solomon Islands. And hell, they're in the same damn island chain. The indigenous people of Solomon Island have blue eyes and blonde hair, but they're Black people. Broad noses, thick lips. They have a different phenotype, and there's nothing wrong with that. But your insecurity is something about that foundational Black. Y'all have to tether and latch yourself onto us. You just have to do it. We are different. And FBA family, don't let people shame you into not believing that.
Not have full lips and brown nose and brown skin. Just say what you guys really want to say. Like that's the problem. Like y'all want to argue facts with opinions. Just because you feel like we don't look the same does not mean that we do not. And again, if you try to argue with me because of your opinion and not with actual facts that refute the fact that we all come from Africa and we look African, you're going to be blocked or the comment will be deleted. Stop arguing facts with opinions.
Okay, and by the way, family, this woman didn't state really any facts. She stated a lot of half-truths in here. Let me be clear, do foundational Black Americans have African genetic DNA? Absolutely. This is not a genetic conversation when we're talking about phenotype. Hell, everybody on the face of the earth, including white people, have some African DNA. It don't mean we look the same. It don't mean we look the same, family. I want you to be clear on that. I want you to be clear. White people, every white person on the face of the earth can take a DNA test and they're going to get a percentage of African in their blood. It don't mean that she looks like a white person from Spain. This is this dumb logic they always try to throw on foundational Black Americans. Because it was 4 to 6% Africans on the plantation, then me and you look the same. Forget all the centuries of admixture and amalgamate with all these other groups who came to America. No, we look the same. You look like somebody from the Congo. This is tethering 101. Tethering 101. They need to latch themselves onto us by any means necessary. Because like I said it before, this is just the beginning, family. See, I look like you becomes I am you, becomes you're really me. And that's what they're trying to get to. We're really them. And everything we do, everything that we say, everything we've achieved that's positive is actually coming from them. We ain't going for that bullshit no more. We ain't going for that bullshit. Foundational Black Americans, you are unique and phenomenal people. And I want you to never forget that, and don't be shamed into not thinking that. It's your brother Chase. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon, and make sure you go get my newest book, my 20th book, When Black Americans Stop Singing and Start Swinging. Until next time, family, leave a comment. Tell me below. Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe you say, hey, Chase, she got a point. Be honest with your brother. We pride ourselves in foundational Black American culture on being honest, being fruitful, you dig? And keeping it a buck at all times, you dig? So leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. And until next time, man, y'all know what it is, man. Peace and Black power. I'm out.